What's going on, everybody? Seth Boone here with another episode of How You Do That podcast. Today, we've got the only
Yuri Medina.
from Plainview, Texas, right?
Yes, Plainview,
okay, cool.
Texas.
So I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself for the viewers and listeners at home that aren't familiar with your current undefeated record. Go ahead and let us know what it is you do.
Okay, so I have been doing MMA for about 15 years. I grew up in a combat sports family and recently got an interest of going pro into boxing. So still working on that. As you know, I was had an incident where I was hospitalized 3 weeks ago, preparing for a boxing match. But luckily now I have a MMA bout on June 10th.
Okay.
So if all goes well with that one, I'll be fighting June 30th, and hopefully soon after that, I can finally make my pro debut in boxing.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and so now you say you had an incident a little bit earlier that kind of prevented a fight from taking place.
Yes.
Let me know a little bit more about that. Was that due to like cutting weight? Where did you suffer an injury during training for the bout, or?
Well, I didn't suffer an injury, but I had signed a contract for 135, and I've been fighting like at 150, 155, and so we've been trying to work lower. So I kind of jumped the gun. So the day of the weigh-ins, I was a few pounds away from making weight, which it was possible, but I started losing balance and passing out, and my back was like in severe pain. So they ended up rushing me to the hospital, and I was like maybe minutes away from my kidneys collapsing.
Oh, wow.
So even after they treated me with the IV fluids and stuff, I was really sick after that. My immune system dropped, and I got like this really, really, really bad flu. But after 2 weeks of recovering from that, because it was very devastating for me, you know, when you put the time and you train and it's months and you make that sacrifice, it was devastating. But then 2 weeks later, I was able to, get myself back up. And then my coach calls me. He's like, "How are you feeling?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm feeling better." And he's like, "Well, what do you think about June 10th with Shanna Gomez?" I'm like, "Coach," I was like, "I need it. Please just like sign me up like right now. Like I'll do it tomorrow because this like, you're preparing for something. You want something like I needed it." So that was the highlight of it all, to be honest.
Okay,
So,
and you fight under PFC, correct?
right now I'm fighting under PFC. Yes,
Okay.
Peak Fighting Championship. My last bout was under Shamrock FC.
Shamrock FC. All right.
Yes, out of St. Louis, Missouri. Sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, you're good. And all that is kind of under the umbrella of UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, correct? PFC is a promotion company. Do I have that right?
Yes. Well, a lot of their fights are shown on UFC Fight Pass.
Okay.
So you can order these fights, and it's a way for I think the promoters stay connected, and the the fight matchers to keep their eyes open for the next big fighter.
Okay, so for the next big contender, it's just a way for them to kind of keep their ears to the street, their eyes on the market,
Right.
and see who the next up and coming journeyman is.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of fighting promotions out there, but there's only a few that's connected with this. And I've been very blessed to be fighting for some of the most biggest promotions in the United States, and going from state to state. And it's I'm living my dream right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so you have a current record of 3-0. What got you interested into fighting? What got you into boxing? What got you into jiu-jitsu, MMA, kickboxing? What kind of sparked your interest? From my understanding, you come from a fighting family background, correct?
Yes, yes. Well, it all started with my dad. He was a Golden Glove boxer, and his brother was actually an Olympian kickboxer.
Okay.
So I would always see all of them. They would always compete and stuff, and I have memories of just barely even walking, and he had his boxing boxing bag. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
No, yeah, you're good.
Kind of
It's heavy
outside in the backyard.
Yeah.
Yes, his heavy bag.
Right.
But it throws me off because he will fill it up with like sand, bricks, rocks, and I mean he had that bag very solid.
Okay.
And he would wrap his hands with like just tape and stuff and just work on his breathing technique, and he'd be out there just hitting it bare knuckle practically. And I'm just like, boxing was probably the first sport to catch my attention.
Now, was your dad ever into bare knuckle boxing? Because you have boxing and you have bare knuckle boxing.
No, back then it was like a lot of how do you say it? Taekwondo?
Taekwondo, okay. Yeah, it's
Taekwondo.
a martial art that Joe so the first martial
Bruce Lee.
yeah, Joe Rogan, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, because I mean, my
Well,
dad's now in his 60s, but I remember my uncle, like, there's actually a picture of my uncle in a newspaper, and he's like, literally probably like over 6 foot, just doing a kick in the air, like
oh wow.
Bruce Lee style. And he was the one that got, had a pass to go for the Olympics, for kickboxing. So, that's an honor. Not everybody can make it to the Olympics in kickboxing. But my dad was more of a boxer. Like, he grew up watching Chavez, De La Hoya, George Foreman, like, some of those boxers and stuff. And then we got the wild card. My brother, who is, he's in his 40s now, but when I was, growing up as 9 years old, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with him. My brother was, he was a mixed martial artist. He was the only one in my family to have ever like retired undefeated. Until this day, he's undefeated. Back then he did shoot fighting. So I did a lot of grappling with him. Like he'd come back from being with friends or whatever. And he's like, if I get you in this move, how are you going to get out? And it just, he taught me a lot of technique, on the ground. So I'm pretty well rounded. It just, I've always just been intrigued with boxing and stand up and, stuff like that.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, you definitely have talent. I was watching a clip of one of your fights, one of your previous fights, and they were mentioning the skills and the strength, and you could see how you implemented some of your technique into the match.
Right.
So, I mean, that makes sense. You grew up in a household where you had boxing, you had all those resources that
Yes.
typically folks don't have access to. So that's awesome. So this is literally, there's folks that say I was born for this. This is in my DNA. It's literally in your DNA. I mean, you got your dad, you got your brother that are masters of the
Yes.
art that you've learned from. So you've had the opportunity to learn different crafts on the same household under the same roof. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
And so what belt are you? You a black belt in jiu-jitsu?
You know what is so funny? I've gone to so many gyms. I've always done no-gi.
Okay.
I was just having a conversation with my friend. He runs a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym in Lubbock.
Okay.
And I remember when he first started out, I had already been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And now he's a black belt, striping, students and teaching them. But the thing is, I've never stayed long enough at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym to, well, let me rephrase that. I've always done no gi
Okay.
because in an MMA match, it's you don't do your gi.
All right.
You don't fight with the gi on. So I've always done no gi, but I am going to start getting my stripes, and I'm pretty sure I can get them really fast. But I'm not ranked in any belt, so like I'll go in there as a white belt and grapple a blue belt or a black belt, and I'll give them rounds, and they're like, "Oh wow, you're really good for a starter." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, "Well, I'm not really a starter. It's
Right.
just like, this is natural for me."
Oh, 100%. I mean, you grew up in a household where, your dad and your brother, this is what they
Right.
knew, this was their life, and they passed that on to you. So you
Right.
have an unofficiated belt, so to say,
Right.
or ranking and all that.
Ranking.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, jujitsu, judo, Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, all that are art forms that are
Yes.
just, there's nothing like. Now, as far as you being a woman in the sport or in the lifestyle would probably be a better way to put it because, when it comes to combat sports, it's very technical and there's nothing in this
Yeah.
world like it. So when it comes to MMA, UFC, boxing, it is a sport. It's right for people to say it's a sport, but it's really in order for you to be proficient in it, in order for you to really not get hurt significantly. And even if you are proficient in it, there's still that risk. And you know that, going into it.
Right.
But it's a lifestyle. It's something that you have to breathe. It's something you have to
Yes.
wake up and put in the hours and put in the time.
Mhm.
And you, I mean, as you well know, you put in and you grew up
Yeah.
around it and everything like that. How do you feel it's different for a woman competing in this sport versus I don't know. It's just like a man competing in the sport.
Sorry.
No, as far as like getting publicity and everything like that for the
Oh.
Ultimate Fighting Championship or the PFC or the Shamrock.
Okay. I get what you're saying. I don't think it's much of a difference, but I feel like there's not enough women out there fighting.
Okay.
I feel like that's the difference. There's not a lot of competition.
All right.
And I feel like they need to do a little bit more scouting, a little bit more contenders, ultimate fighters, and start, advertising in the women's fighting division in
Okay.
general. Um, yeah, you have your few fighters as boxers and MMA fighters, but I don't feel like there's enough. Males has always dominated in that field,
Right.
and I feel like, women need to start, we need to stand up.
Okay.
I walk into a gym, coming to San Antonio, going into gyms, that are, people that I know, like, hey, I need you to go train here. For example, I've gone to BTT, Brazilian Top Team
Right.
Championship, Brazilian. It's a Brazilian MMA camp. Referred to from my cousin. So I go in there, and of course, everybody. They welcome me. They welcome me with open arms and everything. But it's like 20 to 30 guys versus one female. And so a lot of these guys are like, you're sparring with them. They're like, they don't want to go too hard because you're
Right.
a woman. So as a woman athlete, I feel like we have to work 3 times harder to earn that respect, because I have to show them, like, hey, I'm here to train. Like, I'm not just a average female or a woman. Like, I'm ready to to throw some combinations and catch some of your hands and you catch some of mine. And it's like I said, it's just harder for us to make a valid statement in a gym versus a man walking in, because we are outnumbered by male.
That makes 100% sense. But do you feel like that kind of maybe works to your advantage if there's not as many fighters out there, and then also you're training with males that biologically, typically, I understand on in MMA, a lot of it has to do with skill set, right? It's very
Yes.
tactful, very tactical, and somebody that may be of a smaller size still may be able to get somebody else to tap. But do you feel like a lot of that has worked in your favor over your years of training? And do you feel like training with your brother, training with the male
Yes,
versus
it
you know
has. It has. And luckily I'm blessed. Like, back at my hometown, Team Extreme, I have, Coach Tommy and a few of the guys out there that they look at me as a sister. So they actually hold me accountable.
That's awesome.
But like I said, that's my hometown. So doing cross training, not saying I run into these errors all the time, because I do come from a good solid camp,
Right.
and I have a good solid camp at home. But yeah, it does help come to my benefit. But like, I just love to see women fight. Like, I just love to see that dominance, and I'm all about it. Um, but yeah, it does come to my favor. It really does, because I have a lot of great opportunities ahead of me right now, and if all goes well, I'm just going to keep going to the next level. As you know, the competition is not as high in a female fighting division, but it does come into my favor. So yeah, let's just say it does. It does come into my favor.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and you right now you even have something pretty big in the works. Are we able to talk about that after you win your fight that's coming up? You have something in the works right now. Are we able to discuss that?
Yeah, we're working on it right now, but yeah,
Okay.
we can talk about it.
Okay. Cool.
So they had offered me to fight Bella Mir, which is Frank Mir's daughter.
Okay. Wow.
And she's actually, I think she's a 6 world championship in wrestling. Well, I don't think she is a 6-time world championship in wrestling.
You know she is.
Yes, she is. And her father, he dominated in the MMA world in the UFC because of his wrestling and his ground game. And I know she has a great coach. And they had actually reached out to me, one of the fight matchers, and I had already made a commitment to this fight for June 10th. So they had asked me, well, if you hadn't signed a contract, we got this for you. But I'm kind of like, well, after talking to my coach, we gave them our word. So hopefully after this is done, June 10th, that opportunity is still open, and I can go in there and take that.
Now,
So
what round do you predict you're going to knock out your opponent for your June 10th fight?
I think it's the first round.
First round knockout.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it here, folks. If you got your money, you're going to put your bets. First round knockout. All right, cool. What have you been doing? Have you done anything differently as far as training for this fight as opposed to your previous fights, or do you have a routine or a strategy that you pretty much stay true to get you ready to come in and dominate and whenever you get in the cage as you have in the past?
I've been working a lot on my footwork.
Okay.
angles, speed, and my how do I say it? Not like my posture, but my I've been working a lot. Okay, let's just say I've been working a lot on my speed, footwork, because I feel like footwork's a lot, like, it's really important because a lot of these girls, if you know, there's a lot of female fighters, a lot of them like to go out there and they like to brawl. My last fight, the girl, she kept coming at me, and I had a hurt knee at the time. I had a little limp. I don't know if you were able to notice that, but 2 weeks prior before the fight, I wasn't even able to walk. So which is why I stay flat footed the whole all throughout all the rounds. And so, and kind of threw my stance off, but I had to came up with the game plan. I'm like, all right, I got to angle out. I got to angle out. Got to angle out. You know, it's all footwork because, you know, if you can angle out and you can sneak in some, you know, combinations, I mean, you're going to dominate, you know, just every round. And so right now, what I'm really focused on is my footwork, takedown defense, and my ground game.
That's all. Who are some of your role models that you looked up to in the sport growing up? Other than, I mean, obviously your brother and your father, things of that nature. Who were some of the fighters from different divisions that you looked up to and admire and kind of, I don't know, maybe emulated some of your techniques and style from?
A lot would have to do like Chuck Liddell.
Okay.
I mean, he's old school. Um, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, you know, Tito Ortiz. I mean, like when it first started, they were like they were my first idols. You know, watching, and you know, I just love how they went out there and they would change the game up so fast. And so right now, one fighter I do respect a lot and I do look up to is Holly Holmes.
Okay.
I respect her because, you know, she because of her age, and she's still dominating in the field and the sport. Like she's dominating, and she's probably like in the best shape ever. Only one to ever, you know, put Ronda Rousey to a stop. You know, she knocked her out with a kick. And so, and I just love her, the way her character, the way she carries herself. She's very humble. She's a professional, and so that's really big for me. That's someone that I do look up to right now.
Okay. Yeah, I know earlier you mentioned that after you dominate this next fight, you have that massive fight that you're going to train for
Yes,
and you plan on going in and dominating. After that, you mentioned boxing. Do you plan on going forward with both sports, UFC, MMA, PFC, or do you plan on transitioning from that over into boxing, or trying making your professional debut in boxing, and then from there trying to decide, okay, am I going to go PFC, UFC, or am I going to go boxing?
I I've always been intrigued by boxing, and
Okay,
it's always came natural to me. Um, so I want to do both. I want to do both.
okay,
I don't know if there's ever been a fighter out there as a female or even male dominating in both sports. But I love both of them. I think I love boxing because of the technique. You know, it's you know just the whole stand up of just throwing blows and the footwork and all that. But then again, I love MMA because it's like it's you have to be very diverse. You know, you got to work all kinds of angles. So you got so many different angles coming at you. So I have respect for both of them. But I want to do both. Is what I want to do.
all right, well, that's awesome. Yeah, so boxing, UFC, MMA, PFC. 5 years, 10 years from now, you see yourself dominating in both of those sports.
I do. I'm ready to have my first bout for boxing pro because there's a difference of doing some sparring and training for it and actually going out there.
Right.
I do know I have a lot of power behind my punches. You know, I just got to work a lot of on my stance. That's the word I was looking for. My stance, you know, because your stance, it comes in naturally. Your from your chin being a certain angle, your head to your hands where they're at to where your front leg and your back. Like I'm really focused on that because if I can perfect that, then I can run circles and dances around my opponents and just mess them up, both in boxing and MMA. And so that's what I'm really focused on right now. So yeah.
Well, that's all. And now, as far as kind of backtracking, I think earlier you mentioned your relationship with the mayor of your hometown where you're from. He gave you a unique opportunity that not just anybody typically has. Can you want to?
Well, he wants me to start helping with the youth,
Okay.
with our generation. And getting these kids to being active again, teaching them discipline and just, releasing endorphins, because a lot of these kids are like stuck to an iPad, or they come from a home where they're not really taught, you know, the importance of going and exercising, and, them just standing in front of a TV or an iPad all day. It leads to having, it leads to having mental disorders as well, which also affects them in school and their grades. And that's where you have all these fights in high school. And, it's just, so what I want to do is, I want to start implanting these kids to live a lifestyle where they're active and they can be kids, and I can teach them to be kids. They don't have to necessarily have to learn how to fight, but to be able to be fit and healthy is really important, because a lot of these kids are overweight. I mean, 75% of the kids that graduate high school can't even pass a physical for the military, because either they have a mental disorder, or physically overweight, or something's wrong. And so that's really sad. And so if I can get that going, which I'm gonna get that going. So that's what we've been talking about. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on now that I'm moving back to my hometown.
Well, that's awesome. And you said your hometown's right by Amarillo. That's North Texas, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Panhandle,
All right.
between Lubbock and Amarillo, Texas Tech and Amarillo.
Texas Tech. There you go. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, and you were mentioning to me earlier too that there's a bit of a struggle for folks that want to take a military career, and that's another reason why he wants to bring you in to kind of help these kids get a healthy lifestyle. Because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, they're having an issue where the kids are coming in and they're not able to pass the physical requirements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 75% is a huge
It's
number.
astounding. What do you think the biggest underlying issue is with that? Why do you feel like, because traditionally, if you look at the numbers, there wasn't as it wasn't as big of an epidemic. You didn't have as much diabetes. You didn't have as much obesity. You didn't have as much. Do you feel it's cell phones? Do you feel it's just today's society? Do you feel it's the food? What do you feel the main culprit is, or do you feel like it's kind of a combination of?
I think parents need to start taking some accountability,
Okay.
because I feel like our kids are a reflection of us. And yeah, there is a lot of technology. There are cell phones, and technology is taking over. But if we can, you know, take control of our household and limit the kids from being on an iPad or on the phone all day, and, telling them, hey, it's time to go outside and go dribble the ball or something. Because growing up, I mean, I remember just, riding my bike and going miles away, and I had a really good, normal childhood.
Okay.
And that's probably why, we didn't have those problems, because we didn't have those, the cell phones. We didn't have that technology. So we had to find something else to entertain ourselves. And so we'd build clubhouses, and, you know, I would play street basketball with the guys and all kinds of stuff, and drinking water from the water hose. And now you go by the parks, and it's empty, and it's like, it's so sad. So I really feel, yes, technology, but I think we need to start taking accountability as far as the parents, because, we are raising this generation. And I feel like a lot of us adults need to start standing up and being like, hey, what do I got to do to break this chain? What do I got to do to break this habit of the kids just wanting to be in front of an iPad, or these outbursts? Because as we talked about earlier, staring at that blue light, it causes some type of psychological issue to where these kids are having mental disorders as well. So I I really feel it's the parents. It's our fault,
Now,
the adults,
yeah, like the blue light has a negative impact on a developing mind.
right?
Now, don't get me wrong. I believe technology definitely has a place in society. It has a
Right.
place with the youth, but it's like you mentioned earlier. It's not supplemental parenting.
Hmm.
And when the parents step up and say, "Okay, this is your allotted time. to be on the cell phone. This is your allotted time for the iPad. But then after that, we got to put it away. We got to have a family dinner, sit down and talk, go outside, ride your bike, play on your skateboard, get some fresh air,
Right.
interact. And I agree with you 100%. I believe technology has its place in society, but it
Hmm.
can't overrun and rule, especially when you're at that such a young, impressionable age. You
Right.
need to learn how to get out, get outdoors, enjoy life, enjoy being young.
Exactly. Being a kid, and that's one of my main focuses with, teaching these kids to just be kids. I don't think they realize how much they're just missing out on. There's just so much joy outside of that screen that they're staring at all day, and half the stuff that they put on there is just it's stupid. I don't get it. Like, a rat who throws a stick on the rat trap, just to get the cheese. And actually, Joe Rogan, that was the last show I saw, or a clip. He was talking about, he's like, oh my gosh, this mouse, it wasn't a rat, it was a mouse. He's like, the mouse really grabbed like a little stick
Okay.
and figured out the mouse trap.
Oh, that's
And he put the stick on the mouse trap where, it's like, and Joe Rogan's like, I mean, how is that mouse that smart? Like, he was just calm. He just grabs a stick and like he figured out the mousetrap. But back again to that, it's like just teaching these kids just to be just being kids and enjoying life. And it's really important for them to release those endorphins. Like, you have to be physical. I mean, kids, they naturally have all this energy. So when they're sitting there and they're not releasing this energy, it's gonna cause issues. So that's gonna be one of my main focus once, getting back home.
okay.
So.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. It sounds like you got. I mean, you have, and doesn't just sound. You have a great head on your shoulders.
Thank you.
You're physically and mentally in shape. What do you feel contributed the most to that? Like, what do you feel strengthened you the most coming up in life, as far as for your fighting career, and then also as a person overall?
Um, a lot of that has to do with failure. I failed a lot many times growing up, and some of us just we learn from that and we grow from that.
Right.
Some of us we dwell on it and we keep making the same mistakes. As for me, I grew from that, and I think what really humbled me was back when they removed a mass of cancer on my right ovary. I had ovarian cancer,
Sorry.
and I was well. I mean, it is sorry, but at the same time, I'm actually very blessed and thankful for that, because I wouldn't be where I am now, mentally, physically, or spiritually, if it wasn't for that season. Um, but after recovering something like that, it changed my whole mindset, my whole way that I view life. I appreciate life a lot more. Like I said earlier, I remember looking outside my hospital window. I'm like, I just want to go and just breathe some air. I just want to go grab that tree. I just want to put my hands in that dirt. And, I couldn't even walk down the hallway. And I didn't even know if I was going to ever be able to walk out of that hospital. And I've never been so scared of, not so much for my life, but for the life of my kids. I was like, I don't want them to grow up without a mother. So after recovering from something like that, it's like I don't think that nothing else. I mean, it's not a curse, but I'm fearless right now. Like, there's nothing out there that's gonna scare me more than God Himself, or fighting my life, or fighting a battle for my life. And I overcame that by the grace of God. And I remember I just prayed and I prayed, and as I told you, I said they brought my labs after praying for so many hours, and it was completely gone. So by the grace of God, I'm still here, and because of that, it's like, okay, I'm not going to just live the rest of my life as a waste. I got to bring purpose into this. I got to make something of it, because He gave me a chance. So my mindset has changed because of that. Like, I want to do something with it, if that makes any sense. Like, I have to give back, if that makes sense. I have to give back to myself, to my kids, to anyone around me, the community, anybody that's going through a life event, even if my story touches them. It's just, I believe in, what do you call them? Milestones.
Okay.
And I had a lot of milestones in my life. Like my aunt, Amy Teston, she's met her through Church of Christ. So, you build these milestones and you build your wall, you build your wall, and you build your wall where it's strong, where the enemy can't attack you no more. So I want to be a milestone for somebody, if that makes sense. I want to be your milestone. I want to be my daughter's milestone. Anybody that I make contact with. But how do I become that milestone? I got to be a better person. I got to be a better fighter. A better Christian. So after recovering from that, my whole mindset changed. Like I want to be a blessing. Like I want to be victorious. I want to be strong. I want to be empowering. I want to be positive. I want to lift others up. And so that's where I feel like the game has changed for me in the fight world, because now it's like there's nothing out there that's gonna scare me more than that. Like I'm ready to go in there and I'm ready to dominate.
Well, praise God for that. That's awesome. You use something that could have broken somebody physically, mentally, and
Right.
instead you used it to rebuild yourself and create
Yes.
an empowerful, intelligent, strong-willed individual such
Thank
as
you.
yourself. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So now, when your fight comes on June 10th, where for all the folks watching and listening, where can
Um,
they watch the fight at?
You go on Peak Fighting Championship. I actually have the flyer on my Facebook. It's under Yuri Medina, and then you just use the promo code, which is just Yuri, all in caps, YURI. And so you have to sign up for an app, because it's like UFC Fight Pass. So it's a membership. So you have to sign up for that, and then you're able to get stream a lot of fights from Peak Fighting Championship. So it's actually going to be a really good card. They have a vet from the UFC that's going to be fighting main event, Diego Brandao.
Oh, wow, really?
hmm
Oh, that's pretty cool.
He's a good family friend of ours, and so that's going to be interesting. Fighting on the same fight card as him, and it's going to be the conference. It's going to be wild. I mean, not only my fights, going to be exciting, but it's a lot of good bouts on there. So you guys won't regret even tuning in. It's
That's gonna be awesome.
So I know Dana White's going to be watching, and a lot of promoters, just scouting out, the next, big fighters and stuff. So my plan is to go in there and just dominating and, catching the viewers' eyes.
And again, what's the name of the app again? Whenever you go into the App Store, the Google app, or the Android or the Apple App Store, when you go in there and you type in the name, what's the name of the app again?
It's Peak, is PEAK, fighting.
Peak Fighting. Okay.
Peak Fighting Championship. They have a page on Facebook. So if you just
Okay.
follow them, Peak, Fighting, you'll be able to pull it up. They have all the websites. They have the app, and it has everything that you need to know on there. And my fight on there, and my flyer, and my face. I'm kidding.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure and we'll add the flyer and all that stuff in the video. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, and whenever you get stopped, we don't want to be the reason you cause a 75 car pileup. Whenever you get stopped, look in the description part. We'll put a link on there, so that way you could click that and you could go to the fight.
Yes.
And you could sign up. So when they sign up for this, when the viewers that are listening and watching this, when they go and they sign up, they're able to watch your fight. They're also able to watch other fights as well.
Yes, well, just only with Peak Fighting Championship, because that's their promotion. But you'll get to see the main event, the co-main event, the prelims. It's like I said, it's a stat card that night. Like
Wow.
It's going to be a lot of action. So you're going to get your money's worth, and I don't think it's that much. I think it's like maybe like $30, $40. I don't know. And so, but it's going to be worth watching. And because I'm going to go in there, I'm going to dominate. I'm going to win. So go watch me win.
Yeah, 100%. I know I'm going to watch you win. That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, for that price too, I mean, almost giving that away. You can't afford not to. Yeah.
You can't.
You get all that. You get the preliminaries, you get the main events, you get all these different fight cards. I mean, it's action packed. That's awesome. Yeah.
And the characters that are on that card, I'm telling you, I don't want to miss out. So,
well, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I look forward to not just watching you win that next fight, but watching you grow as a fighter and win your coming bouts. Folks, if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us and leave a little comment and a review on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. Until next time, I'm Seth. Hold on a minute. Mess that all up. Stay blessed. Lose the stress. I'm Seth. Ta-ta-ta. I'm out. All right. See, we're even gonna leave that little last part in there because it's part it builds character into the thing. All right. All right.